Most pig hunting in New Zealand revolves around dogs, but for years I've hunted pigs differently. No dogs, no chasing, just observation and patience, trying to understand why pigs are using certain areas in the first place. Learning where they feed, where they bedded, how weather changed their movements, and how hunting pressure completely altered their behaviour. And while pigs don't have dramatic seasonal changes like deer do, they absolutely change their behaviour throughout the year. Once you understand those patterns, finding pigs stops becoming a chance encounter and starts becoming something you can actually plan for. One thing I want to make clear before we get into this: pigs don't follow strict seasonal behaviour the way deer do. There's no single rut or major biological event that changes behaviour overnight. Instead, pigs adapt constantly. Food availability, temperature, water, pressure, and habitat security, all of it changes how pigs move. Once you start recognising those patterns, you start learning to predict where pigs are going to be. You start narrowing down probabilities rather than walking around hoping to bump into one. That's the entire approach I've always taken with pigs. Gather as much intel as possible, understand what the pigs need at that time, and narrow down likely places they'll be. Summer is probably one of the most predictable times of the year for pigs, if you focus on the right things. Once temperatures rise, water becomes critical, and not just for drinking either. Pigs wallow in it constantly to regulate temperature and deal with insects. And because of that, water sources become major hubs of activity. A fresh wallow can tell you a huge amount. Fresh mud, wet edges, and recent tracks are all indications that pigs are still actively using this area. But one mistake I see a lot of people do is finding fresh pig sign and hunting right on top of it. Instead, I'm usually looking for transitional areas between bedding and those water sources. Especially in areas where the terrain naturally funnels that movement. In pressured areas, pigs often become heavily nocturnal in summer. But that doesn't mean that daytime activity disappears completely. Remote country, overcast weather, lower hunting pressure, or cooler temperatures can still produce daytime encounters. The key is understanding that pigs usually aren't moving randomly. They're moving in accordance with comfort and security. Autumn is when food availability really starts changing pig movement. And unlike summer, where movement can become concentrated around water, autumn often spreads pigs out. This is also when reading sign becomes incredibly important, because pigs can absolutely destroy an area and then completely disappear a couple of days later when the food source changes. Fresh rooting usually has darker exposed soil, moisture still in the dirt, and a sharp track definition. Older rooting dries out quickly and the tracks have a softer edge. When food is everywhere, blindly covering ground becomes really inefficient. So instead, I start focusing on the freshest concentrated feed near security cover. You'll often notice that boars become more solitary during this time, while younger pigs and family groups stay pretty social. And because pigs are travelling between more feeding areas, those transitional zones can become incredibly productive ambush locations. Especially if you can identify a route pigs are constantly using without disturbing it. Winter changes pig behaviour in a completely different way. Now, thermal protection becomes one of their biggest priorities. Pigs hate exposure to cold wind, so sheltered gullies, dense cover and sunny faces suddenly become a lot more important. North-facing slopes that receive daylight sun can become surprisingly reliable, especially in colder country. Some of my better winter encounters have actually come later in the morning, because pigs will often stay bedded longer before slowly shifting into sheltered sunny areas. Winter is also one of the easiest times to judge fresh sign. Wet ground preserves tracks extremely well. You can often tell exactly how recently a pig has used the area. And because food quality drops in some areas in winter, pigs can become incredibly predictable around reliable food sources. Spring is when everything starts changing again. Fresh growth appears everywhere and food quality increases dramatically, so pigs suddenly have a lot more options for feed, which can actually make them harder to narrow down. You'll often start finding fresh rooting in multiple locations at the same time. And pigs may not need to travel as far between feeding and bedding areas. You can encounter piglets at any time of the year because pigs don't tend to have a set breeding season. However, spring makes family groups a lot more visible due to being a lot of available feed and pigs spending a lot more time out on that feed. This is one of the times of the year where I stop trying to cover massive amounts of ground. Instead, I focus on the freshest concentrated activity and try to narrow down where the pigs are feeding consistently. In spring, I'm looking for concentrated fresh activity, active feeding sign, and repeatable movement close to security cover. The biggest mistake I think people make with pigs is assuming that they're completely unpredictable. But most pig behaviour comes back to the same things: food, water, temperature, pressure, and security. Once you understand what pigs need in that moment, you stop relying on luck. You start recognising patterns, and that's when pig hunting without dogs becomes incredibly rewarding. You don't need dogs to consistently hunt pigs. You need patience, observation, and spending enough time paying attention to why pigs are using that area in the first place. And that's what turned pig hunting from random encounters into something I could actually plan for. And if you'd like, in future videos I can break down how I pattern pigs, reading fresh sign, ambush setups, tree stand and blind placement, effective baiting techniques, or how hunting pressure changes pig movement. Because honestly, there's a lot more going on with pigs than people realise.